If your game is between a pure classic and modern worlds, there is a huge chance you will enjoy a speed racket. Let's discuss the tennis identity and play styles that should suit each type of racket. I want to say big thank you to Tennis Warehouse Europe for making this review possible. If you want to buy a racket, make sure to use my affiliate link and save some money. So, Speedline. I think it's worth mentioning that from all the rackets, from all the brands, from all the silos, only Speedline and Prestige line impressed me from the whole catalog, from up to down, from the Speed Pro, Speed MP, Speed Tour and Speed MPL. I liked every racket. Every racket had something special. Every racket had a potential to play well in stock form. Prestige Pro, Prestige MP, Prestige Tour and Prestige MPL. So 4 rackets. Every racket has something special. The feel of the Prestige line is just sublime. And Speedline is a bit pushing this classic world into a modern world, making the performance slightly hotter, slightly more forgiving, slightly more up-to-date. The current state of tennis is going into speed mode, so you need some help. So let's start with the lightest one, Speed MPL. I don't have the footage of me playing with the racket because I don't consider myself using this frame, but I want to mention that for its light wave, the wave distribution, the control, the forgiveness was somehow similar to the frames of 305 grams. So it feels a little bit on a heavier side for its wave, for its static wave, but because it feels so stable, it has some plow through. The lighter package makes it really an interesting demo for an advanced juniors or intermediate players that want to hit a bit more linear. They don't want to loop the ball, they want to hit more through. Speed MPL is a great racket here. The next one is Speed MP, endorsed by Yannick Sinner, so the sales are probably the highest here. This one is the most modern racket, was the first one that I liked compared to the previous versions. Hybrid technology made the feel slightly more classic. It is the most responsive racket from the speed line. It is most spin friendly, but still, as we can expect from the speed line, the response is quite predictable. Launch isn't as aggressive, but yeah, as it is a 100 square inches racket and 16-19 string pattern, the launch angle and power is the biggest here. I think it is worth mentioning that Speedline is, I would say, already an advanced racket silo. For its static wave, I would say usually I feel like the racket is slightly heavier to maneuver. Maybe part of the story is because the beam thickness is quite big, 23 millimeters. In the past, Speedline was slightly thinner, and Sinner is using a thinner thickness of his Speed MP. So what surprised me the most with the Speed MP is how easy it is to stay out of problems. It is easier to push back the opponent. It is easier to hit the ball in a way that it is harder for them to execute their best shots. So in a way, it is a really good frame to neutralize the game, to control the pace of the game. You can play with different angles, different heights above the net. This is the special trait of this frame, and with its control, you can still flatten the ball when you get the opportunity. So grinders should enjoy this frame, baseliners should enjoy this frame. It is not the best racket for feel and touch, but the solutions and in general solutions within the speed line are quite clear. You probably should think about catching the ball on the rise, be aggressive with your movement, where you stand on the court. You don't need that much power, but you need enough power to stay out of problems. So yeah, Speed MP, most versatile racket. For its wave, slightly heavier. I wouldn't give it to a beginner. Swing wave is quite high there. But if you're an athletic player, you want to grind, you want to make an effort, it is worth a shot. Speed Pro, maybe my favorite here. I also love the Speed Tour, but we'll get to that. Speed Pro, even more predictable response, even more control, even better plow through, predictability, the launch angle, everything is just perfect for my slightly more classic game, and I get a bit more power, a bit more forgiveness compared to my favorite Prestige line, Prestige Pro, Prestige Tour. So Speed Pro is kind of my first step, my first pit stop when I want to try a speed racket. Every Speed Pro release excites me. I used to play with the Speed Pro, it was called Speed Pro Graphene. One thing I want to say here, I really liked a leather grip in my Speed Pro. I think it made the whole experience more complete. In stock form, 310 grams, slightly more headlight balance. I was missing some power to the point where I had to accelerate similarly fast compared to the Prestige Pro to get the same result. So yeah, leather grip, bump up the static wave to the point where I can play a cold tennis and still place the ball deep. I love the Speed Pro, especially for catching on the rise, and when I play a spinny player like Casper, who uses Babolat Pure Aero 98, the ball really jumps off the court fast and with some juice on it. So I need a frame like this to control the rally and even be aggressive with my somehow counter-attacking play style. Speed Pro definitely is a top 5 racket for counter punchers, and this is the special trait of it. The negative things about Speed Pro is probably access to spin. 1820 is quite locked, so I already mentioned it. With its more forgiving nature, yet classic response, but still a heavier static wave when you add a leather grip. The power to spin ratio is a bit risky. If I don't accelerate, if I kind of want to push the ball and place the ball, there is a risk of hitting short. If I accelerate more to get more power, there is a risk of not importing enough spin to place the ball back in the court. So yeah, access to spin is a bit limited here. Access to forgiveness, access to flatter shots, hitting the ball almost in a perfect line. Yeah, Speed Pro is the best here. But if you want to play with wrist, play with some touch shots, Speed Pro is a bit worse here. And now we can go to the Speed Tour. Exactly the reasons why I had some issues with the Speed Pro. Speed Tour was helping me. Think of this as the feel and placement racket. With a smaller head size, it's built for players who love touch, angles and precision shot making. You still have the power. I think it is the most powerful racket when it comes to smaller head sizes. 97 inches, closer to the 98 world than the 95, but still, when I look at the racket, it feels and looks more classic. It is the most classic racket from the Speed line, but still the power potential is bigger compared to the whole Prestige line. So probably the first pit stop when it comes to players wanting to switch from the Prestige line. Speed Tour is really exciting, especially with a leather grip. I think because it is a smaller head size, the response is very predictable. The starting static wave, I think, was a bit too light. I understand that Head didn't want to push the racket into an advanced racket, still wanted to make accessible to a large group of players. Still, as a whole lineup, more advanced players, or at least willing to be an advanced player. Speed Tour, most advanced but most rewarding maybe, and the variety of shots that you can make with the racket is most impressive. With the Prestige Pro, I think my vision how I can play, I can compete is quite clear. It is catching on the rise, waiting for the counter punches. With the speed MP, it is staying out of problems, playing with heights above the net, making other players suffer through placing the ball outside their comfort zone. Speed Tour, it mixes some things from the Speed Pro, some things from the Speed MP, and that's the reason why I love this racket. I think the only issue that I'm having with the Speed Tour when compared to Speed Pro or Prestige line is I wish it could be a slightly faster racket. I think the feel was maybe a bit too slow, to the point where I was losing clear vision how I want to play when compared to some other rackets. Speed Tour, even though it suits my play style, I think it's taking too much energy from me to perform well. But yeah, choices are everywhere, so that's the tricky part of finding a racket, because every racket has something special, and it's your job to kind of make the call, make the decision how you want to play, how you want to solve issues on the court. Speed Tour is a very versatile racket, maybe the most versatile racket from the Speeds catalog. All the other rackets obviously the same in performance, but clearer in identity. So Speed Tour is a great racket for tactical players, but many tactical players might prefer a more forgiving ride. So this is a tricky balancing game. So yeah, that's it for this review. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe and see you soon. Something special is coming, so yeah, follow me guys. Maybe some giveaways.